Okay. Hey, what's up, Dante?
What's happening, bro?
Nothing much, man. I'm chilling. I'm happy to be alive and well mid
Word,
COVID-19.
definitely.
How you holding up, man? What you been doing?
Same thing as before, man. Just keeping myself busy. Working on the movie club, DCO movie club. So I'm revamping it a little bit next week, and I think tomorrow we're gonna do like a premiere for the Issa Rae film that's coming out on Netflix.
Oh
So
yeah.
do like a little watch party for that. Um,
I'm excited about that movie, man. It looks
yeah,
good.
yeah, definitely.
It's a part of that whole situation where movie studios having an overload of films. Netflix picked it up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies that'll be picked up in the next couple months that'll be streaming that were supposed to get through theatrical releases, and this is
Right.
one of those ones that looks like a really good one.
Yeah, and then I think it lands at a good time. I think a lot of people will watch it out, and it's
Hell
right in the
yeah.
middle of the season of Insecure. So
Yeah, right. Fresh off of the Last Dance being over,
right.
people aren't really like watching anything heavy
Yeah.
duty. So
Um, what you been up to?
I've been chilling, man. Weekly we do a comedy thing. Funnyfactorcomedy.com. We're doing a weekly Zoom meeting
Yeah.
that streams to YouTube. I've been doing really well. We take donations. We don't get a lot of donations, but people typically give like $50 each time. It's a weird thing, not like $5 or $10. It's been
Yeah.
really nice. Like it's been nice to get comics all over the country to do stuff because people are just sitting at home. They can't move around.
Right.
It's really incredible. And we've been trying to get like diverse groups. We're trying to get this Israeli comic who's kind of carving out this space.
Hmm.
More on that later because I don't want to spoil
Okay.
it. But yeah, this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've also been doing Catch the Fade. Catch the Fade's doing really well. The song myself with King Los just hit 50,000 streams on Spotify.
Word.
70 total, but 50,000 on Spotify and with zero promotion. I'm talking like no promotion. We just reached out to playlists and, people
Yeah,
like, hey, please listen to our song, please. And King Los is rapping his ass off on it.
for
And we
sure.
had a lot of fun. So Catch the Fade, myself featuring King Los. And I've been making the quarantine dreams on my Instagram, Instagram.com/who is Ron James, these 60-second videos just about cheering people up in the middle of the quarantine.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think
Uh,
that's it.
yeah, I guess we can go ahead and introduce our guest now. Sneaker strategist, designer. She's been featured in books, and I guess you can say she's a TV star now, right?
Don't say that.
Um, Jazerai Allen Lord, if you want to say what's up to the people.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me, guys. It's gonna be
Oh,
super exciting.
For
thanks for
sure.
coming.
So this is funny because it kind of ties all the episodes we've done recently in together. So I met Ernie at the footwear forum, right? And then we ended up having a conversation a few times outside of that and just running into each other. And then obviously after that, Jock Slade comes on, and he did some stuff at Kicks on Fire. And then today we'll find out some more about how that all works in together. But we'll start off just telling people where you're from and how you grew up and like what actually got you into sneakers.
It's so funny because I feel like every time I come on one of these, like it's like, okay, so tell us about like where you're from, and I'm like, I'm a regular ass bitch. Like, it's like I always give like the Cardi thing, like I'm a regular girl, but it's so true. Like I feel like that's who I really speak for, right? Like just
Word.
like the regular girl who loves sneakers, who isn't trying to be like an influencer or a design, those things happened in my journey, but I really just loved sneakers. And I think like at the heart of it, that's where my career ended up taking me because I just refused to do something that didn't make me happy.
Word.
And so it was like, well, here's what I like, and let's see how many different ways we can finesse this.
When did you first realize that you had a love for sneakers? Like, what was your first experience where you saw a pair and like, oh, this is it. This is an obsession has been created.
What, you know, it's funny is like very similar to the stories that Lena tells on the Quibi show, You Ain't Got These. My obsession didn't really start with like a single pair. Ooh, sorry about that.
That's right.
My obsession didn't really start with like a single pair. It started with this mental health situation where I was a young Black kid being bused into white school and would be at school and like significantly remember sitting in PE class and looking around, and all of the white girls had blue chucks, and like I wanted blue chucks being from California, and my mom didn't. She was a single mom. She had me when she was 18, and she didn't have $42 to buy me chucks. And so I grew up as a kid that wore like 4-stripe Adidas, you know, that wore like fake Puma Clydes from Payless, and always aspired to like want to be, you know, Run DMC was huge for me back then, you know, like wanting the full tracksuit and, you know, the superstars and that whole thing. You know, I'm a kid that grew up in the 80s, you know, not a 90s baby, but like a legit 80s baby. And like that, the whole, it wasn't necessarily like Michael Jordan and me being a basketball fan, you know, it was really about wanting to participate. I was a tomboy, I think is like what we used to refer to girls in the 80s that didn't want to subscribe to traditional views of feminism. And that was me, like a sports-hearted girl who wore sneakers, LA Gears, you know, and looking at Jody Watley and like wanting to like be that version of myself and not seeing any opportunity or any stories being told that look like me.
Word. And I think from what I've known and read, you kind of were like really into the sneaker culture before like the blog era even started. Like you were really starting to, you know, put things up online and people really started getting attention to what you were doing that way, right?
Yeah, I would say my first online experience of like popping, if you will, was on accident. It was because I got married in a pair of Daylas in this pink box back here. Pink box era, by far the best Nike SB era.
I agree.
All time, right? But I got married in a pair of Daylas because I loved sneakers. And in '99, I camped for shoes. You know, in 2000, I was lining up on Melrose at Kendo. I had my son and he was in a Recaro, you know, racing baby seat, and we had matching Jordans. And like, that was 2002, you know, and like, it was just a part of my life at this time. And I think sneakers as a community already existed at this time. The internet was new, but we did have a presence on the internet through Nike Talk, through Female Sneaker Fiend, you know, through many different ISS, which is now Soul Collector, all of these platforms that we had to share conversation, but it was far before the digital age really popped. And so it was really just something I did for me. Like the photo that ended up on Tumblr, that ended up going viral, that put me on the map for my old boss at Kicks on Fire, was not a photo that I staged as an influencer for the internet. It was 2007, and it was a photo that I took of my feet on my wedding day. And so it just became something, like I just read an article last week where it was like, new trend of women getting married in sneakers. We've been fucking doing that. You know, from women from the culture, we've been doing that. You know?
Right.
There's definitely this gap in information when it comes to that stuff. And I'm glad that you're around to kind of deliver it to people and be proof that these things existed before then. That kind of brings me to a question. Back when you started really become a sneakerhead, there's a real lack of variation when it came to women's sneakers back then. So did you find yourself buying a lot of men's sneakers just in smaller sizes or grade school shoes, things like that back then?
Like, this is a small piece of my collection, and only one pair of these shoes is in a women's size.
Wow.
Somebody on Twitter just asked this morning, like, ladies, what size shoe do you wear? And
I saw that.
Yeah. I've been answering this question forever. Men's size 6. That's what size we wear, right?
Right.
We don't shop. We've never shopped women's. It's the proof is in the pudding. The data says that women in sneakers shop men's first. Everything I have on, except my earrings, literally right now is men's.
Yeah.
And I buy men's first. There is previously, I would say it was much worse because the only way that they were speaking to women was through an athletic or performance lens. And so it's like, okay, women, if you wear sneakers, it's only because you play soccer or basketball or tennis.
Yeah.
But there's no other reason you would be wearing sneakers like outside of these 3 things. So we're just going to make you sneakers for these 3 things. Meanwhile, we're still buying this shit, right? In school sizes and men's sizes. And I think today we have more opportunity as women to design outside of that silo space. However, brands still very much see us with very little diversity of thought. Women are glam girls, women are moms, and women are athletes. And that's really the only buckets that they want to put us in. Meanwhile, if you're a man who plays basketball, you can play as fucking 17 different players. You can play as Paul George, LeBron, Michael Jordan, Kobe, like Kevin Durant, like a million people with their own shoe. James Harden. You have the option to choose who you are. And that's just in basketball. And women, we don't get that same love.
Yeah. And I think what stuck out to me was from You Ain't Got These when Candace Parker was talking, and she was like, she couldn't go to the store to get her own shoe. Like, they had to special make her shoe for her so she would have a pair. Like, she couldn't just go to the store and purchase a pair if she needed or wanted to give them away. And I think that just speaks to the lack of focus that they give women and the disbelief in the buying power for women. Because like you said, for a female basketball player, they want to wear their favorite player's shoes, and girls that are around her height and her size wear that shoe, so they want to wear it. So I think that makes it, a space that we still need to get better in, obviously.
Not only that, like, Lena plays no sports. She's in entertainment. She wears a men's size 10. So it's like you're already excluding us from the story just based on offering, period. And I think there's so many things to unpack there. But, I think like the most important thing is that today we do have opportunity at least to tell those stories, but we still do see friction. When I went in to design my product with Reebok, the Club C runs, and I chose the Club C. The Club C runs kids, men's, and women's. And automatically they're like, oh, you want to do women's Club C? Yeah. And it's like, no, I have to do men's Club C because of the fact that my son doesn't fit within the women's run.
Right.
As a single mother who does this to aspire her children to design a shoe, to then tell my kids, like, it's not for you.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you don't mind, can we talk about your shoe a little bit since you've brought it up? It looks like it's behind you.
It is. I have a DS pair here, but that's the pair. This is my DS pair, and the pair behind me is the pair I wear regularly.
Gotcha.
I actually aim to wear this pair as much as I can because I want to see how it wears.
Right.
And I want to see like how I went with the vintage tumbled leather, so I want this to wrinkle down. I want to see like what it's going to look like in its full form after it's aged and things. So these are the ones I wear regularly, and then these are the
Do you walk on clouds? How the hell are those so clean? What the hell?
A lot of places. I don't go a lot of places.
They're incredibly clean.
Right.
No, but that's an amazing thing. So Dante has a pair, and I guess let's talk about some of the details of the shoe, because I'm super curious about inspiration and how stuff came about. So I
should have brought out a regular pair of Club C's, but I would say some of the things that have not been discussed on a on a larger scale are these very, what I like to call like intimate design moments that I know about, you know, and maybe like you wouldn't necessarily see from the naked eye.
Right.
But like I removed the perfs at the top. So normally in a Club C, all of this is perforated. And so I removed the perfs because I really wanted to go in and do this very like clean, minimal design. So that small detail for me was super important. Above that, for weather, I know it's like not really a big deal, but for me, it's something that I noticed being from California. All of those things were fine, but now on the East Coast, like those little perfs, your feet are really cold with that breathing, like in certain seasons. So I removed the perfs. The other thing I would say is that I loved was the back. So this piece, my glare. So there we go.
Oh yeah, there we go.
This piece here is a one piece heel cup. So the normal Club C has a top piece that kind of wraps the ankle, and then it has a strip that goes behind of leather. And again, to create that like unified look, I really wanted this to be one piece, and it has a deconstructed edge. Ooh. So it's like kind of just laid on there and sewed on. So that was, you know, those were the two pieces of like small things. And then inside here, I removed some of the stitching as well. So like it reads cleaner. The arrow here kind of reads a little bit cleaner. Small things there. It uses 3 different types of leather. So the tongue is unlined. It's deconstructed. It is, I believe this leather came from New Zealand. We looked forever for, I mean, like, this shoe went through 3 or 4 samples because this leather was so difficult to make. And there were just some things I went into design that were hard lines I wasn't gonna move on. And premium materials at a single mom price point, so $100 or less, like it had to land there. And that's one of the reasons I went through so many iterations. I wanted this leather to be as plush as it could be, you know, for the people that love materials and still remain in the price point. So if we have to search through all of Reebok's archives, if we have to look through the world, like we're gonna do that.
Word.
The gold eyelets, so they come with 2 sets of laces that you can see here, and they both have the gold eyelets. Something that I haven't talked about before is that the hang tags, I actually like never wanted to do hang tags. Like, on God, I feel like hang tags are the most like overplayed item when it comes to fucking friends and family and stuff. And it's like, we do so many other things.
Right.
But I learned so much during the design process. And originally these hang tags were gonna be a pin that sat here.
Oh, dope.
And the pin you would be able to remove it and like put it on your jacket, on your backpack, like whatever, you know, and so they would be pins essentially. But going through compliance, which is a stage that you guys probably know about, but a lot of consumers don't know about, the pin did not pass compliance because it can't sit on the shelf with a pin, like in case a kid stabs himself or somebody, you know. So they offered to do the pin as part of my friends and family run, which was another like, kind of light bulb moment for me, is that 90% of the time we see a shoe that comes out in friends and family and we're like, that shit is hard. How come it didn't drop like that? It's because it dropped on friends and family because it didn't pass compliance.
That's a cool ass fact. I didn't even think about the idea of compliance making a difference in the production.
You can't put it on the shelf and they can't sell it. So they can produce it for like gifting and things like that. So a lot of the times, like I know when Push's shoes came out, I was like, the friends and family are hard. And there's so many times, like the SB friends and family were so much doper than like, but it's like, okay, that's why, because they couldn't sell it like that when it went through all of its development and engineering and things like that. So
that's really dope. So there's writing in the inside as well, right? Like
do you have your insoles out,
I was going to say I can pull one out real quick.
Like, I don't have the insoles out.
This one's coming out. There we
and
go.
I'm like the ones I wear, I took my insoles out.
Almost. There we go. All right, so got one out here.
Yeah. Okay, so that one is a letter. It's posted on my Instagram, kind of far down, but it is a freehand letter I wrote to young creatives, young women of color, about my journey. And I mean, like, I love the fact that I scribbled out on, and I went with that copy. It's like, I want them to know that this was this is really what was on my heart. Like, it wasn't edited. We kind of went into that design. I thought I had it down here, but it was just like a paper of the insole, and I had to draw on it and then scan that into the program. So it was really nice. A lot of the girls wrote a letter, and they executed very differently. So on one side of all of the shoes is a letter, and then on the other side is some type of illustration. In mine, I had all the people closest to me throughout my journey. So that's my mom at the bottom, my best friends that aren't even sneakerheads, Evan and Zion, my kids, my best friend from Kicks on Fire, who's now a culture writer at the Boston Globe, Janae, and an old picture of me and my mom at the top. So it was important for me to honor like everybody who helped me get to where I'm at today. A lot of the times people get to the top of their mountaintop and they're like, I did it by myself. And, it's like, nobody's doing it by themselves.
Right.
Nobody on this earth is doing it by themselves. Every photographer needs a location, needs a model, needs a media hub to post their photos. Every producer needs a client to produce. Like, nobody's doing it on their own. So for me, it was important to recognize not just the women, but the people that really made it possible and believed in me throughout this whole time.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing. I could tell that you have these pockets of obsession with detail, and it's admirable. It's really cool to see. I mean, you could pick up a shoe and look at something and be like, okay, there was a little bit of care into this. But yours is, I'm impressed. I'm really glad that you explained all that stuff. So not like a scavenger hunt, but I just always wanted there to be this new surprise, right?
That you are, as you're looking at it, and I'm finding that the people that bought them, they're seeing that. Somebody DM'd me on Instagram a couple weeks ago and was like, the picture that Reebok has up of your shoe, it has these holes in it, and the ones I saw on GOAT don't have the holes. Are these fake? And it's just those little differences people are noticing, and it's nice to be able to tell those, to be online and be engaged with the consumer, which is a different thing from 20 years ago, and to be able to share those stories and be there when they do have that moment.
Right. Absolutely.
And then even the shoe overall, it sold pretty well, and I think people really enjoyed it, not just in America, but around the world. I think you were surprised at how receptive people were to it.
I'm still so surprised. The night that it came out, it dropped at midnight, and my business partner, one of my best friends, Dawn, and one of my other very good friends, Andrea, both, Andrea is somebody I know from sneakers and from the writing world. Dawn's somebody I've worked on every activation for the past couple of years and produced my sneaker release party for. So the three of us were just getting lit on the computer at night, waiting to see what was going to happen, because it's a different thing to be selling hats and merch or selling somebody else's product, or, but it's your product, and it's going through the process of what you're used to experiencing. So a midnight drop, and are people gonna wait up? Are people are they gonna do that? I'm not LeBron, will they do it? And within like the first 2 hours, everything under size 6 was almost sold out.
Oh, wow.
So it taught me so much for me. Like, okay, like the girls are out there, even if, you know, my Instagram says 30% of women only are following me. Like, the women are out there and they wanted this. They've been waiting for a product that looked in line with everything else and wasn't pink and sparkly and metallic. Like, they've been waiting for this, and to buy a shoe designed by a woman in their men's size, you know, like they're accustomed to buying. And it taught me that. And then the next day, Australia sold out. And I was like, I didn't even know motherfuckers knew me in Australia. I'm popping in Australia. I didn't even know. Like, I got to get over there.
That's really cool. You mentioned something about when you were first designing the shoe that you wanted to do it in men's so that your son could get a pair. How did he feel about the release of the shoe?
My older son was like, "That's cool, Mom." Like, my older son Zion, he's 18 now. I think for him, particularly him, like, he has grown up with knowing nothing else but me doing this. You know, when I started at Kicks on Fire, he was 5 years old. He tagged along with me to every dunk exchange, to every, you know, like all of the expos. Anytime I had to interview somebody, he tagged along. Every party I produced, he was there, either with a nanny or helping me, you know. And so it's like, this is normalized almost for him, and he doesn't, which I love. Like, at the end of the day, I'm just his mom.
Word.
And so he's like, "That's cool, Mom," you know, and that's like make or break. But for him, for my older son, what really shifted the narrative was when his friends started trying to buy them, and they were sold out. Wow. And so now he's walking around in his mom's sold out shoes, and his friends, like, different people have them that, like, he didn't know at school. And so, like, I would see him on the timeline sometimes on Snapchat, like, snapping somebody that had my shoes on. And so, because this, like, my world and his world are aligning, that's what made it special, when he started seeing that, like, his friends were like, it's not just something regular that's happening. Now his friends are responding. My younger son is like my number one fan. And 7 is like telling everybody that he's on Quibi. He was like the one that was like, "Did you see me in the insole?" You know, like that. That's him. Like, but he said, it's so funny because he said, "Mom, my friends keep asking me, like, can't you buy me this slice of pizza? Use your Quibi money."
That's incredible. How was the Quibi experience?
It was amazing. And, like, I was nervous about how it was going to look, because people tell you things all the time, like, "Oh, this is what our intention is. This is what we want to say." This is what we do. And that shit always gets diluted, or like, "Don't say this," or, you know, like, all the time does it kind of filter down in that way. And so even though we shot all summer last year, probably for about 3 to 4 months. And they were long 15-hour days, 4-hour master interviews, you know, over and over and over. And so they had a lot to cut into these small 10-minute episodes.
Right.
And then it wasn't really all the way laid out how the episodes were going to roll. So at first, they were going to spread out my story, like, throughout each of the episodes, and kind of like tell my story as an undercurrent to Lena's story. So, like, Lena is narrating sneaker culture, and then they were going to use me to show, like, how the work is done, if you will, like the work she's discussing is done. And so I was like, "Oh, that's going to be so cool." And then, like, 2 weeks before the launch, they're like, "We decided not to do that." And
damn it.
Yeah. It was like, you actually have your own episode.
Oh, wow. That's even better, though. It's
I
kind of
was like, okay, like, what is that episode going to be? Because I thought I was going to be like just helping tell this other story.
Yeah.
And now it's like a full episode about me. I was so nervous about how it was going to play. And I was watching them along with everybody else. Like, we didn't have advanced copies. So I'm trying to see like how it's building. I knew what day my story was going to go live, and I was sprinkled throughout the beginning episodes as well. But I wasn't sure what the narrative of that story was going to be. So after watching it, I was just so grateful to Lena and Broadway Pictures and Alien on Effect. I don't even know that man's real name, but he follows me on IG, and he like is the one that that directed the cut of my episode. They really told a story that needed so desperately to be told. I didn't even know until getting the response. It has been nothing but young Black women in my DMs totally in tears saying like, thank you for telling your story, because I can finally see myself in media through your story.
Wow. And
there was such a lack of representation for the normal girl, you know, if you will, and the girl who's just trying to get it, and like the girl who isn't at Fashion Week, and you know, the 23-year-old who works at the Nike counter who wants to work at the Nike office. You know, not enough people speak for her, and it's all those girls who really feel like they can do it now because they've seen themselves through me. So that is like the most amazing thing I could have ever asked for, you know, in the world is just to leave it. For me, you know, like, I want to be able to sit down, and I can't sit down until there are other seats at the table for other women that look like me to sit down. Yeah. And for me to inspire them to like keep chasing it is important to me, because I'm going to be done eventually. And I want to make sure that the next crop of women behind me are prepared, and they're ready, and they're educated on the issues, and they're empowered to talk about them.
Yeah. And I think that's the conversations that we kind of have offline, is like trying to increase representation as far as, you know, minorities in the field. And the other thing that came out in the show to me was like, Lena isn't somebody that just produced the show. You and her are like really friends. Like, you guys really communicate, and she's like super supportive of everything that you do. And like, she took your shoe and showed it to a lady in the show. And so I thought that was really cool too.
She wore them on the Ellen show.
Wow.
Wow. I was like, what? Like, everybody's calling me like, my younger son was like, Mom, they said Lena wore your shoes on the Ellen show, so we're on Google, and I'm like, are those my shoes? Sometimes they look like the JJJ Hound, I think is what his name is. Sometimes they look like,
I know what you're talking about.
Sometimes, like, so from far away, I couldn't really tell. And I was like, are they mine? And then I'm like, yeah, they are, because I seen the hang tags when she was coming out, and I was like, yeah, those are mine. So she wore them, you know, with John Legend on the Ellen show. She's talked about them many, many times. When I do lives, she comes into the live and supports the lives. You know, she has been really instrumental in me having visibility in spaces that am not already known. Like in sneakers even, I would say, like, I still have a far way to go in regard to visibility. It's a lot of Black people that know who I am and know my story. But like, I need old white men to know who I am.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like, I need old white men at Foot Locker and old white men at Nike. I need them to know who I am. And Lena taking amplifying my message and my design actually lets the Black people outside of sneakers, you know, which, believe it or not, there are a lot of them out there outside. And lets them know who I am and what I'm fighting for. Yeah. And finding the point of alignment there. And so that to me has been huge, you know?
Yeah.
as far as doing it with Reebok and, you know, speaking to everything that you just spoke to, they seem like they're really forward and allow people to come in and speak their stories because you're there, obviously. And Kirby is doing stuff there with, you know, Pierre Moss and putting things out. Like, what was the process of working with them like for you?
I loved the work with Reebok. I think I loved it because like it didn't start with the shoe. My primary work, as you said in the introduction, is in strategy. And so when I'm working with brands, it's further back than the activation or design stage. I'm working with them on, are you strategically speaking to these marginalized groups of people? Are, you know, what is the intention in the message? How is the execution? And editing pieces on in their pipeline to speak more authentically. Mm-hmm. And I think that the brands that choose to work with me, they do so because they don't have fear. You know, I am somebody that just says it how it is a lot of the times, and am unafraid. And a lot of times brands are wary of partnering with people that are unafraid to use their voice because their issues can come to light. The brands that I work with are well aware of the issues in the sneaker space and the ways that they potentially could be contributing to them. Mm-hmm. And instead of saying like, it's not that big of a problem, or the data doesn't say that, which is what they love to fucking say all the time. You know, these particular brands like Reebok, like a New Balance, say like, tell us more, you know, and what is it that we're doing? Where are we failing? And how can we do better? Right. You know, tell us more. And they're genuinely engaged and interested to hear. So when I went into Reebok, it wasn't with any different intention than when I went into Nike and Adidas and said, you have a problem. You know, I don't understand why it is that Black women who are at the foundation of streetwear and sneaker culture, you know, sneakers is Black culture, regardless if you want to call it hip hop and entertainment and urban and athleisure and whatever the hell else you want, label you want to make it. Sneakers at its root and at its core is Black culture. And I don't understand how Black women have been exiled from not only the design process, but the influencer endorsement side, from campaigns, internally in the business, totally gone and have no representation and no visibility. And I think it's a problem. Yeah. And, you know, normally when I say that, they say, there's a list of things we're doing to address. And we did a field study with a bunch of moms who said they want comfort, you know, and they want pink Jordan 1s, you know, and it's like, that's the response normally. At Reebok, they actually brought my business partner and I in. They had the archive manager pull out everything that Reebok had done under women's or anything disruptive. So like Allen Iverson's denim suit that he wore, I believe, during the finals. All the stuff that like they had in their archive, Jazerai stuff, Shaq's original, the original Shaqnosis in his size, you know, all these things. And we just had a conversation about where the brand has been, where it's going, what its specialness was. And in the room, they had the Venus Williams campaign, It's a Man's World, because this campaign that we did originally was an endorsement campaign with Venus Williams in like 2001, 2002-ish.
Got you.
And this image was up in the room. My business partner said, it's almost sad that we could run this campaign in 2020 and it would still hit the same. Like, have we made progress? Right. You know, and they said, you know, we are working on an inline campaign, which is all of the white sneakers that you saw drop at like Foot Locker, DTLR, Jimmy Jazz. So the inline campaign they were working on, and they said, could we show you the product? You know, and, you know, would you actually be interested in collabing on like a separate piece outside of this pack? And I said, my story is actually heavily amplified already. I think any time that they do choose to use Black women, they use a light-skinned, racially ambiguous girl, and they don't speak to the diversity of thought within Black women. So I would like to see a dark-skinned Black woman who worked behind the scenes do this collab. I would like to see a body-positive Black woman do this collab. I would like to see, you know, a woman with Hispanic origins or like an Afro-Latina do this collab. Those are the voices that I want to see. You know, me doing a shoe is not going to fix the problem. And so they said, okay, well, do you know people like that? And I'm like, yeah. Most female, you know, and
of course I know people like this.
Yeah, of course. Like you're out. It's like being in Whoville, right? It's like we are here. It's like, yes, I know people like that. But we don't account for the fact that 60% of the people that work in-house at the brand, shocking, are not from the culture.
Right.
There are people that get up and go to fucking work every day and have benefits, right? And like feed their families. They're not people that stand for shit and read the blog. Like, they aren't us.
Yeah.
Do they know these things? No. It's a lot about opening conversation between groups that aren't in conversation. And so that's what I try to do, you know? Hey, well, yes, I do know people like this. We're out here. You know, do you know them internationally? Yes, I know them internationally. We're all over the world. Women behind the scenes are all over the world that like sneakers. So they said, well, can you put a little group together? So I got my little motley crew, you know, and hit them all up. And, you know, they were all women that I've worked with or known throughout my career. Girl on Kicks, I featured her many times at Kicks on Fire. You know, and though she is a white woman, she's a white woman that is an OG and has been doing this shit since I've been doing it. And she doesn't speak for this new age of glam girl that just got on the scene when Kylie and Kim did. You know, so like that's a story that needs to be told. There are white women who have been authentically in the game from the beginning, and we're still not using her. We're still choosing to use a friend. So, Girl on Kicks, Museum Mammy was an important choice for me. Kimberly Drew, a dark-skinned, body-positive Black woman who speaks her truth on the issues and comes from the museum art world, you know, and is a curator and a commentator and really has a different view but still loves sneakers. Wonder Girl, who is engineer and producer for Travis Scott, Lil Uzi, and many, many others. Canadian, again, a dark-skinned Black woman that actually is not a glam girl, more on the tomboy side. And of course, Distorted, who is a girl I have mentored for 10 years. And so, of course, this is a full circle moment for her to be in the pack with me. And so those are the girls, you know, and I was like, are you guys down? They were down, and Reebok gave us the creative freedom to do what we wanted. My other stipulation was that the person that designed the shoes was a woman of color. I think that's what you have to use your voice. The worst they're going to say is no.
Right.
But for me, I wanted this story to be told truthfully from the beginning all the way to the end. So the talent needed to be right. We weren't 5 girls that were cast in a campaign. We're real friends. And I think you can feel that in everything that we did together. Right. And then outside of that, I wanted the person that was tech designing the shoe to be a woman of color. I wanted the person working on the engineering and the compliance to be a woman of color. And I was able to have all of those things and release the product that I did.
That's crazy.
Thank you for being so intentional about that. I think so. I just started following you, and I'm noticing that when you have the opportunity, you're very intentional about who you're trying to reach, and that's important because there's a lot of people of color who get into these positions, and when they're asked those questions, they give these blanket answers like, "I'm doing it for sneakerheads." No, I'm doing it for Black women who do not have the opportunity to be seen, who are not represented in these spaces, and you made it a choice to bring people in. So thank you. I appreciate that. I'm noticing it. I was noticing it just through your feed, and now I'm talking to you, And it's a mirror image of that whole idea. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Word.
You know, I try to be like a curated version of my real self online, you know, so you're not going to get like the boring pieces, but I do, it's important to me that that message doesn't stop like where I'm trying to be cool, you know,
Right.
like I could give a fuck if my life is cool today. Like, you fuck with it or you don't, you know,
Right,
and if you don't, like, I respect you anyway, it's cool, have a great day and move along your life. But like, you know, that intention went all the way through and it's intentional in everything. When we went in to release the shoe, I wanted a woman of color to release, you know, to produce the event. I wanted all of the partners that came in to be people of color or women-owned businesses. All of my sponsors, you know, Cousins Dozen in Brooklyn, a Black-owned donut shop, like Tonic Vibes, a women-owned CBD company. Those are Cass Rum Beverages, a woman of color, a Belizean-owned rum punch brand. You know, those are the voices that Gem and Bolt, a women-owned tequila brand. It went further than just the shoe. And then on top of that, it was a media party, right, for sneakers. And you think there's going to be free drinks and a DJ and all this and gifting. And people came and they were told very, very clearly, you will not be gifted if you don't make a commitment. And for me, part of the work that I do is creating impact commitments or impact cards. I go into the sneaker companies and I talk to people that are not in the C-suite and say, you don't have to wait for your boss to make change. You don't have to wait for your company to change. You could do something from where you sit to create change. What are you going to do? Are you going to take on a mentee? Are you going to donate 10 hours of time to an organization? Are you going to make a link up for somebody? Or like, what is it that you're going to do? Because you can't just sit there and complain. You have to be actively making change and you're empowered to do so. So yeah, I respect that you came out to support me and you want your free shoes, but nobody's being gifted unless they make a commitment. And at the party, we had a wishing tree. There's a bunch of little cards that are hanging down that say women in sneakers. And every single one of those cards hanging on the tree was somebody that made a commitment to make change and to take an actionable, measurable step to create change for women in sneakers. Wow. And that for me is how it's then, not only is it me, but I'm expanding this mission and I'm like charging you to do something about it too.
That's really, really dope. You mentioned Kicks on Fire a lot. What was that time like for you there and just being engulfed in the culture that way and, you know, participating in media and writing, you know, on the culture from your perspective as a woman?
It was the best of times and it was the worst of times. It was, you know, the best of times because Khan, the owner of Kicks on Fire, really just let me do whatever the fuck I wanted to do and believed in my vision. And he fought me sometimes, but very rarely. He let me kind of just do what I wanted to do. And so it was my first opportunity kind of leading and being able to throw pasta at the wall and see what sticks and what's working. It was also a blessing because at this time, their sneaker media wasn't sneaker media. Like when we were first online, Complex didn't even have Complex sneakers. We were Complex's sneaker outlet. Kicks on Fire, Nice Kicks, the Shoe Game, and I think there was one other entity outside of that. That was part of, I think, Soul Collector. They had Soul Collector, but they didn't yet have like Complex / sneakers.
Right.
And it was just like us competing against each other. And, you know, like we didn't have Twitter or Instagram when it first started. So it was just a lot of press releases. And at that time, the way I was looking at the game was very different too. It was like, oh, wow, they're paying me to write about shoes. Never imagining that like this shoes were going to become such a thing. It was still a very niche, you know, a niche hobby almost, if you will. And it was like hobby blogs that we were reading. It wasn't such a mass culture moment like it is now.
Right.
And so I got to hire a bunch of super cool people. I did it just like my boss at Kicks on Fire hired me. He hired me on AIM, on AOL Messenger.
I miss that. I miss instant messages.
It's funny. A few people that we've interviewed recently have mentioned that, so that's played a big part in the culture.
It has. AOL dial-up, baby, played a big part. We had a mutual friend, and he saw my wedding photo on Tumblr and asked my mutual friend about this photo, and my hiring process was like 4 AIM messages. Like, are you a writer? Yes. Do you like sneakers? Yes. Are you a woman? Yes. Do you want to write for this blog? What's a blog? Like, that's how I was hired. He knew that having a woman would set him apart from the other sites that were out, at that time. And I don't think he thought I was the woman that he was getting. At that time, there was a lot of it was very like import car culture in sneakers. So it was like, the booty short model with her boyfriend shoes, or like a lot of this. And a lot of that going on. And like, it was just, I think he thought he was going to get something like that, and then I came about, and he was like, "Oh shit! Like I don't know what to do now." He had a lot of super forward-thinking ideas. Like one time, he developed a whole separate Kicks on Fire, just like so all the women's articles would populate. So it'd be clicked women. Like,
cool.
The colors would change. The articles would be aggregated, and you would just see like content specifically for you, quote unquote. And then it was hard though, because there weren't a lot of active girls online.
Right.
And so it was literally like us doing Craigslist ads to find women who like sneakers, us going back to the forums to find women who like sneakers, and because we didn't have, again, like Instagram. At this time, we probably had Twitter, but we didn't yet have Instagram.
Right.
And then through Twitter, I started doing the Kicks on Fire timeline, and I would see all these young, passionate kids that love sneakers in like middle of America towns that they had no access. And I became passionate about giving them access to be able to make it, because I'm like, anybody that can work from home that has a computer can do this type of work. You just have to be knowledgeable about the space.
Yeah.
So everybody that I hired from Twitter, and it was probably about 11 people, 11 writers, and they were people that mainly young men who constantly engaged and were passionate. For me, it was important to find people that were truly passionate about the culture and weren't just trying to be like on, which had started to become a thing.
Yeah.
I brought my best friend with me, who I met in like Black Girl blog comments, and she loves sneakers too, the girl who's in the insole. So the two of us created Chicks on Fire, which was just a way for us to honor women in the culture who weren't necessarily like selling body first, but were selling something else first. And their love for sneakers really was coming through. And so she and I oversaw that. And then Jock, who I know you guys had on the show, Cousteau, Jock and my ex-husband were actually in a rap group together. And
what?
Yeah.
What?
So Jock and my ex-husband had been doing business together for quite a while before I came into the picture. Jock wanted to get into the sneaker space, but he was super techie. Jock and I had, at that time, I was like working part-time at Kicks on Fire. Jock and I had our own blog called Nerd Like, which was like an early iteration of Complex, essentially. We were like bridging the gap between hip and hipster, and like giving tech news and like what we thought was like quote unquote white people news, like that's Black folks like, and talking about it in our way and from our perspective. And Jock and I had that going for like a year and a half. And then he got laid off from the banking world. We had a recession in 2008. He was working in banking. And I was like, want to come work over here for me? And he was like, yeah, okay. And he said, I'm not really a good writer though. And I'm like, you do whatever the fuck you want to do. You don't have to write. And then he was like, can I do a show? And his show was born at Kicks on Fire.
Yeah.
And so that show he then took to Nice Kicks, and then he went out on his own, and then we have Cousteau as we know him today. But, you know, I really started at a time like Jock and like everybody else, you know, the Matt Welties of the world, that we were just a bunch of kids who liked sneakers who were on the internet writing articles. And what you did with that was really based on your grind and your longevity.
Word. I guess all the way up to you transitioning out of there. What was your decision to leave one and then you just entering the curation space that you do now and working with brands?
I left Kicks on Fire in 2014 the first time. It was hard. I mean, like even today, I no bullshit. It's very hard, you know, because it's hard not to go back. Because my heart is in that brand. I think when you built something, it's hard to kind of walk away from it.
Yeah.
But in 2014, I had a young woman who, and now you have to remember, like the space has changed. It's now just not me like writing articles. It's like now people know me on Instagram. Like it's a whole thing that I wasn't prepared for. I never wanted to be in front of a camera. I never wanted to be an influencer when I found out what one of those was, you know, in my life. I never wanted to do that. I was a writer. And I was a really shy, anxious, socially awkward, you know, I watched Awkward Black Girl, you know, and that was my shit before like Issa became who she is now today. And I never wanted that life. And my life was becoming that. And I wasn't spiritually prepared and prayed up enough to be in that position.
Gotcha.
A young woman wrote me on Twitter one night. It was about 2:00 in the morning. And I was on Twitter, like, trying to pump myself up, trying to tell myself shit to, like, keep going, you know, like we do, tweeting ourselves in a positivity. And she DM'd me and said, I was gang raped on my campus. My grandma just died from cancer. Her mom had passed away. The dad had disowned her. And she said, I was going to kill myself tonight, but I read your tweets and they saved my life. Wow. And I had the biggest breakdown for like 36 hours. I mean, like it was a full day and then some. Yeah. All of my female friends basically called like a video call, you know, on Google Hangout or Google Meet at that time, like way before all of this. And I cried to them and just was like, I can't do this. Like, I cannot be responsible for young women's lives. I cannot be on the receiving end of this. I was getting divorced. Like I was going through my own shit show. You know, and I wasn't ready to be the hero that they saw me to be. And my life online was super cool and my life offline was super broken. And I needed those two things to be more congruent with each other before I could continue on. I felt like a false prophet. Like I just felt like I was so mind fucked by the whole experience. So I left, and I tried to do other things like write for AOL, write for other publications, do side jobs here and there. And then Khan said, like, can you come back and just post videos for YouTube? And I'm like, okay, well, at least if I do that, like I won't have a lot of public engagement, but I'm awkward in front of the camera. And like, that's not what I wanted to do. Like, I don't want to spend my life like reading off this teleprompter and describing these shoes on the screen. And then a couple of weeks after that, I had to come to New York. I came here to New York with Reebok. I mean, like Reebok has always been, you know, very intricately tied to my story in different ways. Reebok brought me to New York to talk to Conor McGregor as part of the Z Pump launch. And they were doing all these activities around it, and I ended up getting snowed in. And the dude I was dating at that time, his boss at the time was Mark Echo's first investor, Seth Gersberg. And Seth Gersberg knew like that he knew me. And so he said, like, can you come into my office? Can you meet my boss? It'll make me look really good. You know, this and that. I was snowed in. I ended up coming into the office. I met Seth, ended up in what I now know was an interview. Didn't know it was an interview at that time. He called me in with the CEOs of, you know, like 40 Ounce, A-Life, Hell's Bells, Lamar and Dolly, like everybody that he had in his production family. Rocksmith at that time called me into a meeting, started asking me a bunch of stuff. I was like, that's trash, that's whack, nobody does this anymore, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, how much would it cost for me to move you here? And I'm like, I would never come here. Like, I'm a Cali girl, I have kids, this and that, like, you're fucking crazy. And he said, write down what you make at Kicks on Fire and pass it to me on a note. And so I passed it to him. And then he said, now write down the number it would take for you to get here. And I was like, there is no number, you know, like, it's like this testament to like, you could really be afraid of your own greatness just as much as you're afraid of failing. And I was so locked in my small brain that I didn't understand what was going on. And I was like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? You're crazy. Like this and that. That man called me for 6 days straight. And every day he offered me more. And the final offer ended up being a 6-figure salary, a $20,000 relocation package, putting my kids in the best school district here in, you know, like it was ridiculous. Like it made it impossible for me to say no. It was the summertime, so they paid for my kids to go to summer camp, and they stayed with their dad for the first summer because it was always an excuse I had, like, well, I can't do it because like I need to try it out first. Yeah. Okay, well, come try it out. What is it going to take for you to try it out? Your kids need to go to camp? Put them in camp. Like, you know, they paid all my flights. I went home every 2 weeks to see my kids.
Oh, that is incredible.
So I made the move eventually. You know, I tried it out in the summertime. I made more money in 2 months than I made the whole year at Kicks on Fire. I was like, fuck that job. Never going back. You can't make me go back, you know. And I made the decision to move, and I brought my kids in September when school started. By March, the business went bankrupt. And now I'm here, you know, and like, what am I gonna do now? And I went out on my own. With my ex, we did the Real Friends hat because now I'm empowered. Like, if we could do all this shit for the brands, we could do it for ourselves.
Right.
You know, if I could tell all these sneaker stories, if we could produce product launches for all these streetwear brands, because now I have clothing experience and production experience and buying and visual merchandising and all this, we could do it for ourselves. And so we did that, ended up phenomenally well. Then people started saying, now I'm a designer. So it's interesting when you came across me, I feel like you would know me in a different context. Like a lot of people know me as that girl from Kicks on Fire. A lot of people know me as like that girl with the Real Friends hats. Now people know me as like a designer because of the Real Friends hats and the Reebok shoe. Now I'm like that girl from Quibi. You know, and it's really interesting where all of these pieces kind of align. They all have the same intention. It's just different ways of me telling the story.
Yeah. What's something that's kept you malleable, that's kept you kind of able to move around in these different spaces? Because I've noticed a commonality in all the stories. So here's you, the world's going crazy around you, and you're always the solid piece in that story. What gives you that sense of confidence and your ability to move around? Where's that come from?
It wasn't confidence. It was like, I'm not going to be unhappy.
That's confidence, though. That is a form of confidence.
There were a lot of nights I cried on the bathroom floor.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There were a lot of nights I thought that I couldn't do it. There was, I left a lot behind, but I don't feel like I've lost anything today.
Right.
There were a lot of times that I thought that I couldn't do it, and the only thing I had to tell myself was like, bitch, you thought you was washed the last time and you still here. So that's all you can do, right? Is like, I know you think this is the end, but it's like, how many times have you said that to yourself? And it wasn't the end, right? And something else happened. And for me, enough like, oh shit, phone calls had happened to know that another one will come, right? Like, that's not the only time that you're gonna pop or they're gonna call you for an interview. Like, no, like, if the work is good, something I tell young women all the time is like, if you believe you're that bitch, then you gotta move like you're that bitch.
Word.
You know, and yet, like today, with 20 followers, but like, you have to really be moving, because when you get that one call that's going to change your life, all of that is going to break open.
Word.
And that's, that happened to me at Kicks on Fire. I had like 500 Instagram followers, and then I took over their social strategy, and I got on Twitter and said, hey, this is Jazerai from Kicks on Fire. And in 2 hours, I had 5,000 Instagram followers.
Wow.
120 weeks back, talking about my kids' hair, talking about my cooking, talking about like, just talking all kind of shit, and it's like, I wasn't ready for my life to break open.
Yeah.
And, just like when the young woman DM'd me, I wasn't ready for that responsibility. And it took a long sabbatical, in between the collective, which is the job that moved me here, to True to Size, the company I founded. I shaved my head. I moved out of my apartment. Like, it took a lot of spiritual growth for me to get to a place that I am ready, because now I'm charged. So now I'm here, regardless of if I ever wanted to be in front of a camera or not, life has brought me here.
Right.
So now I'm charged with, what are you going to do with that platform? How are you going to educate? This is my calling. And so I have no choice but to show up. Now, I could show up in many other ways. I could take checks from Keds when they offered me little pink shoes to design, and I could say I could do that and feed my kids, but do I stand for that?
Right.
Do I fight for that? Is that what we need? No.
Yeah. And I think what's dope about doing all that, it's just led you to all these other opportunities. And you talked about the other brands that you work with and doing things for Black History Month, and that whole wall behind you has a story as far as your career. If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, let's see. These are a project I worked on with Under Armour in Haisu and Jen Musari.
Those are dope.
Yeah.
2 different shoes. So this was one of my first middle engagements, right? It's like, I didn't do the design and I didn't post a video for Under Armour, but I was a quote unquote sneaker authority on this project. So they had 2 illustrators come in and create this print. And then I came in as like an authority on sneakers and helped them place the print on the shoes and did all the design editing. Like, what are the laces gonna be? What kind of accent colors are we using? How does it flow? How does the marbling work out? Like, all of those, what materials are you using? Those types of things. So that's why, that's two women who are not from sneakers that are illustrators, like a Sophia Chang, if you will, working on sneakers, which I thought was super dope and super important. This is a pair I did with Adidas many years ago, when the ZX Flux was like a thing. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I love
I definitely
those.
remember.
They had the part where you could basically customize your own and put whatever you wanted on it.
Exactly. So this was actually my longboard. So this is the toe of my longboard.
Oh, dope.
And what I did was I took a photo of that and then laid the photo of my longboard on top of this and then rearranged it to kind of wrap. So
yeah,
they aren't the same print, but so that they match kind of next to each other. These were part of an initiative I used to do with Adidas where I would design colorways for things that they were putting up in the My Adidas store.
Mm-hmm.
So when you would go to like create the sample colorways that were there that kind of like led you or sparked your brain, I would work on those. So these ended up on Wooster Street in an art gallery that Adidas hosted with all of the like partner designs that they had created. So they were like on a little wall with my name next to them.
dope.
It's really. I like how you casually went through the fact that you're a skater. You're like, yeah, longboard.
You're right.
So how long you been skating?
My whole life. That's why SBs are like, that's how I came into sneakers through like Vans, SB, Etnies, DC, Osiris,
Right.
you know.
That's really dope.
New York, chocolate, like that was where I was at and like how I came into sneaker culture. These, of course, like one of Melody's first shoes. So I never wear these because who's like wearing these spikes on the back of their funny, but like it's important. Like that's why these are like important for me to have. Like it's that nostalgia feel. For me, these totally. This is what made me want to do a shoe. I never ever dreamed of doing a shoe, but when Melody dropped these in unisex sizes, and I got to buy this in a 6, and then I had to fight off other men. You know what I'm saying? It was like, wow, okay, like the boys wanted these as much as we did. And then Trinidad booked me on his show when he was doing Camp James to talk about women's, and I showed up and we both had these on. So
that's crazy.
Both wearing them for that show.
That's a great shoe.
These are another very little known shoe, but Reebok again. This is
Golden
Barbie, Jasmine Sanders. And these are actually hand painted and custom color designed by Alexander John, who is one of my favorite fucking Black creatives of all time. So these are, do I think that the Golden Barbie is somebody that I aspire to be and ideate? No. Do I think that she's like an actual sneakerhead? No. But like, is her story translated in these through Alexander John? Fuck yes. This is her eye color, her favorite colors. They did a makeup palette. They came in this big silver like briefcase box, but every single one of these, he literally customized the colors and did all of the painting on. So I've never worn these, but these are one of my favorite pairs because Alexander John, somebody I featured 15 years ago, on the blogs, like telling me to like this man's art, and now look the stuff that he's doing. And I would say like these were when me and Jock had Nerd Life only. And we would talk about sneakers, but we weren't at Kicks on Fire yet, and somebody made these for me.
Oh, those are clean.
Yeah.
And they're like old school when you would like actually paint sneakers.
Word.
And then I would say, let's see, another IB program. Nike called me in when they were dropping the Prestos. So everything I design is based on like a heroine that I loved as a kid. So these ones, they say Jazzy Hendrix on them. Clearly I was going through a moment when I did. But these are based on She-Ra. So,
wow.
The Princess of Power. She was one of my childhood heroes. So you know her colors and blah, blah, blah. Also very USC from LA. And everybody loves another pair I did with Adidas, my Adidas program, my Kill Bill Superstars.
Oh.
Those are hard.
On the side here, if you know the film, then you know that reference. This is inspired by the Crazy 88 scene.
Yeah.
They were originally supposed to say Crazy 88 on them, but licensing wasn't playing those types of games with me. But these are definitely like one of my favorite pairs that I ever did and worked on.
I just watched that movie like a month ago, both parts.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
These, I just did this with Kawhi in February, so
that was one of my favorite projects.
Say top 4 moments in my career, styling Paz and becoming Paz from De La Soul's friend on Twitter, and our long-standing friendship from then is one, and interviewing Kendrick Lamar is one, and working on this launch is right up there with that. This pack is New Balance's first Black History Month pack for the brand, period. It was created by an African-American product team that the brand put together. So a full cross-sectional African-American, team of people, not only working on the product, but the marketing, the PR, the strategy, everything. They took that messaging even further to make sure that their agency partners were people of color who also spoke for the mission, which is where I came in. So my team at True to Size ended up writing the strategy for how they were going to launch this product in the community, and then we activated the actual event. So instead of doing this big party or doing like a beautiful kids event at the beautiful Boys and Girls Club in Venice, we chose to go to, a very marginalized community, the Mar Vista housing community. 300 young Black and brown kids live in this community. We don't want to go tell the Black History Month story to like a bunch of white kids in Santa Monica. That wasn't our intention. We wanted whoever this product is for them to hear it, feel it, receive it, and know that they could be it. So the team flew out to the event. We spent the whole afternoon with the kids, showing them representation of what it looks like to work in sneakers and not have to be a Kawhi or a Joe Freshgoods or a Michael Jordan or even a me. Like you could be working in HR, you could be a DJ, like so many other points of entry for you to work in sneakers. We did a kids event with After's Ice Cream, which is another company owned by people of color, an immigrant-owned ice cream shop in Southern California. We had so many, so many good moments because there were 300 kids with like ice cream sandwiches with, looking at the product. They had a custom t-shirt that they got at the event it was designed by a Black artist from New York. And then Kawhi ended up coming and doing a special appearance. Wow. Kawhi actually informed the design for this whole pack. So these colors are his high school colors. He went to MLK High School, and these are his MLK High School colors because I had questions going into it, right? When they gave me the product, I'm like, how's it Black History Month and you're doing a red, white, and blue product? Black people don't want Black people don't want to see that. Right. Kawhi designed this based on MLK, like the gold accents, and I was like, okay, that's dope. Like it's a dope story then.
Right.
You gotta go dive deeper into the stories. So, these are the shoes I wore for the activation, but also part of the pack. And what a moment for my career to like launch New Balance's Black History Month collection for them, and to be able to have that moment with the kids and to be able to inspire all these young people to see themselves in the work, and for them to be excited about it. And then my last one over out here would be the Geigers that people normally want to see. So this is before Geiger started his own shoe company. He did the misplaced checks. So you could see them. It says it here, the misplaced checks. Oh. He did it with the shoe surgeon. This is the first pair of the all red ones that he released. So it's like ostrich, pony, so many different materials used on this shoe. But the first 2 runs that he didn't do anything below a 7. So Geiger is somebody that, again, I featured him many, many times at Kicks on Fire. We were old friends. He hit me up and he was like, for the red ones, I'm gonna drop down to a 6 and I'm gonna send you the first pair. So he said, I'm gonna do only 2 pairs of 6s and I got you. And so that's why these ones have a 1. They're the first pair of the run.
Whoa.
Pairs of 6s. I wear these shoes all the time. I love these shoes. Like, I don't understand people that like really love their shoes and they never wear them.
Right.
That doesn't make sense to me, but I really wear these all the time.
I'm going to ask you this question again. Do you walk on clouds? How do you maintain this cleanliness with your shoes, damn it?
These are like brutally creased right here. Look.
They still look good, though.
Right.
They still look really good.
And then I have all my little books and things, you know, 7s. Like, I have my kids' first pairs. So, like.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's dope.
And then I have one more pair here. 7's first pairs.
Those are dope.
Oh, clean.
So, you know, I try to keep them all.
That's really cool. Thank you so much for that. That's really cool. So as we wind down, what we like to do is kind of get you to talk about some of your favorites of many things. So you mentioned liking Kill Bill. So give us 5 of your favorite movies.
Dirty Dancing.
You said that so quickly. Dirty Dancing.
Dancing, my fucking favorite movie of all time. Both Kill Bills. Memento, an old movie called Memento.
Memento's really good. Yeah. That's is that Christopher Nolan? Is that Christopher
Nolan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dope. Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock is one of my favorites as well. And School Days.
School Days holds up in a way. All right, let's stop and talk about this movie for a second.
We recently talked about it too.
We recently talked about it. There's something about Spike Lee's obsession with logos, clothing, music, dialogue that feels real. Facing real issues in a way that feels like, you know, not isolating. It doesn't feel like anybody could come into that movie and watch it and understand the dynamic. Almost feels like Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
very timeless.
Just watch that movie. I've been on this like Spike Lee tear. Like, I love Spike Lee's movies.
Word.
Like, I was torn between School Days and Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
But School Days is one that I'm still finding lessons in every time I watch it. Like,
gotcha.
Still absorbing something new. Still like, oh my gosh, this is still a problem today. Like, it's such a throwback, but also so relevant to a lot of the things that we experience now.
Have you met him before? Have you met Spike Lee before?
No, I would like
let me think I saw that.
List.
Yeah, he's like
Rihanna's on my bucket list. A few people still left on the bucket list. It's weird to be on this side of it now, though, because I spent so long making lists of people I wanted to interview.
Right.
Word.
And now it's like every time I'm called, like somebody wants to interview me, and I'm like, oh, my list.
What's our next list, Dante?
Let's go favorite book. I see you have a little stack behind you, and you mentioned books before.
I do. My favorite books. The Autobiography of Malcolm X.
Did you hear about Lawrence Fishburne
doing the audio book?
Oh, I
He's
did.
going to be reading it. Unabridged version. Is it like September or something like that?
I believe, September.
They just announced it the other day.
Oh my gosh, that was the first book my dad ever gave me.
It's an incredible book. That's Alvin Ailey, right? Alvin Ailey. That's a really good book.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
the audition, Barbara Walters.
Oh.
Her journey in the male-dominated space of journalism is inspiring. Prince's book, I have it up here, but I can't remember what it's called. It's like Rain, maybe like, might even be, I don't think it's called Purple Rain, but it's something Rain. But the book on his life is amazing as well. Ironically, Spike Lee, The Best Seat in the House. It's really good. And I would say his children's book is one of my favorite books.
I've never checked that out. What's the name of it?
Give me 2 seconds. I have it.
I don't need to put you on the spot. I didn't know he did a kid's book.
Man, that's like super dope, man.
I sit in the kitchen because I burst a candle on it and it's kind of all messed up now. But it starts with all of these quotes from like Harriet Tubman.
Oh, wow. Everybody.
And it's called Giant Steps to Change the World.
Oh, wow. I got to get my hands on that.
Yeah.
It's Spike Lee's children's book. So it's just about like, you know, the first step is key. You may be so unsteady that you actually fall, but you must pick yourself up and keep stepping.
Wow.
So, you know, it's for me, it's like those are, I love this type. I'm working on Baron Davis's businesses right now, and a lot of it is this idea of retelling children's stories, which I'm finding so many passion points for, right? Like Black Santa is his first character, but he has this big vision to rewrite these narratives that we've known as children, and a lot of them are in our tone and in our language. Right. So over the books that are like, you can be the best, you know. Like this is how I talk to my kids, like you're gonna fall. Yeah. Like hurt, you know, and how are we making it relevant to the times? And so that to me is why I love this book, because it's really important. I feel like that young people in particular can see themselves, you know, introistically in characters and movies, books and things.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And speaking of books, I just remembered I have this here, which you are actually in towards the end. I think here. Yep, there you go. So you've been all over the place. You've been in books, shows.
Girls on Kicks books. Girl Got Kicks books too, also.
Oh, that's so dope. Who are 5 of your heroes? Who are 5 people that have inspired you throughout your life?
Malcolm X, most definitely. I think I'm more Malcolm than Martin. No problems with that. Lisa Bonet, I would say in the early 90s, late 80s, it was so inspiring to see somebody unafraid to just be themselves. And
right.
Look was very, you know, her look wasn't like the glam girl look that we know of, like very boho and very just like, I don't give a fuck. And I love that energy that her and Lenny Kravitz just exuded, like Lenny being this Black man in rock music and being unafraid to wear his hair however he wanted to. And that to me was huge. Allen Iverson, the reason I'm even into sneakers, like I loved the sport of basketball. I wasn't an avid basketball fan, but I loved players. And I loved what Allen did for the disruption of the sport and for him to like almost force white people to be comfortable with who we were.
Yeah. Oh, I remember when he came around, it was like a ripple effect. It was like everything changed.
Yeah.
Great.
I remember
big back pan. I mean, like
everything changed. I remember just the shorts. I remember like watching basketball games, and I was like, okay. When he came around, the shorts got baggier, and then I noticed all the kids in high school have baggier. I was like, everything's changing, and it's all Allen Iverson's doing. It's wow, cool.
Yeah, I just love like what he did, you know, and that's not necessarily like his gameplay. It doesn't make him one of my heroes, but what he did.
Yeah, culture.
And I would say My first style icon was Punky Brewster.
Oh, wow.
You know, that was the first person that I saw myself in. And in her like whole vibe of I used to wear 2 different chucks, 2 different socks. You know, my stepmom always jokes like, "Are you gonna go outside like that? Like, you know, you have different socks on." It's like, I know, you know, I know where.
Punky Brewster was definitely disruptive, and I see where you get that from. That's really dope.
Right.
You had a black best friend. That's you know, I was like Cherry and Punky, but I liked Punky's vibe. Like Cherry was a little girly in her dress, but Punky didn't give a fuck. She had a denim vest, like 18 colors on, 2 different shoes. It's like, yes, sis, like that's where I'm trying to be. And then Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni. I grew up wanting to be a writer. Jessica Caramore, who is a poet that I followed forever, and I literally just slid in her DMs the other day. I do that. Like the same messages I get. It's so weird to get them because I'm sending those messages too.
Gotcha.
So it's like, hey Jessica, it's just little old me who's been reading your work for 20-something years, and I just want you to know that like you inspired me to tell my story, and now look at the stage I'm telling my story on, you know.
Wow.
So Saul Williams, another person that I slid in the DMs and is like, you changed my life. You know, it was the first time I saw Black people talking or doing poetry, because I started as a poet. I'm doing poetry that was unafraid on large platforms. You know, Saul Williams and Jessica Caramore. So
did you have a poetry name?
Just my name.
Oh, okay. Like Sage Afro Fly or something like that. I feel like you have a name like that. I was gonna say something really random. Nikki Giovanni, MPT has this archived stuff, and Nikki Giovanni participated in this like talk show called The Soul Something. I gotta find the name of it. She hosted this show that had a bunch of like Black performers. Like I think James Brown showed up on it. And it was like this variety show. Oh, wow. It's like she'd talk a little bit in the beginning, she'd interview people, and then it'd be performances. Yeah, I'm gonna find out the name of it and give it to you. It's really cool. Sorry.
I'm sure that Nikki Giovanni has Thug Life tattooed right here on her arm. And that just makes her like
what?
35,000 times more amazing. I'm 95% sure that it's Nikki Giovanni. It's like it's one of my favorite old Black women that is a writer, so I'm almost positive it's her.
That's incredible. So we said heroes. What's next, Dante?
I guess your favorite piece of clothing that you own, because you have a very laid back style, but you have some very unique pieces and jewelry and things like that. Is there something that you wear all the time that's your favorite piece?
Yeah, I have a hoodie that says Michelle Obama is still my first lady. That's one of my favorites. And I designed a satin jacket for New Balance's marathon activation for the band past year. And that jacket was very well received. I would not be surprised if they produce it.
Damn, that's dope.
But it's like a satin, like 50s style jacket, like members only bomber style jacket with the New Balance logo here, but the run this logo on the back. And I just really love to play with old silhouettes and new logo placements. I think that there's so much beauty in the way that we used to execute uniforms, like gas station uniforms, and engineering uniforms, jumpsuits, like that whole Dickies Carhartt moment. really powerful, but it's unfortunately like so overplayed in its direct translation.
Yeah.
So I try to use those same tactics and those same minimal palette, these same neutral colorways, like that kind of go anywhere, do anything kind of vibe, and not go too crazy.
Yeah, that's cool. So give me 5 albums that you can listen to start to finish, no skips.
Illmatic.
Ooh, oh, I love that album. Sorry, I don't mean to.
Illmatic is one. It's the top one. My son's middle name is Nasir. So,
Get out of here.
I'm a huge fan. Illmatic is probably the first one. Oh, start to finish.
No skips.
Janae Aiko, Sailing Souls.
I love that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's one of
Janae
my favorite ones. Toni Braxton, but I can't remember what the album is called. It's the white background with her name. Maybe it's just a self-titled album where she's like to the side.
Yes. That
one is what is definitely start to finish. Megan Thee Stallion, not this last one, but the Tina Montana mix, the mix
Tina
Montana on it. That one where she's in a little white dress and she's doing one of these. Start to finish, most definitely. Let's see. What else? You know, I want to say Hove, but I'd be skipping some of Hove's tracks.
I appreciate that honesty.
Right, you don't get that a lot.
That shit with Jeezy sometimes. It's just like, you know, I don't want to listen to all of it all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I can't do it start to finish. Beyonce's Lemonade, start to finish for me.
It's a pretty amazing album, start to finish. And then seeing the videos with it, like added a different level. I was like, oh, okay, now I can listen to this album forever.
And Dead Prez, Let's Get Free. I could listen to
wow.
start to finish also.
Dope.
So I guess, you know, since we're on music, it's a good time to introduce the Branded 10, right, Ronald?
Yeah, so we have this portion of our podcast called the Branded 10. It's basically a companion piece for the podcast. We basically get all of our guests to give us 10 songs that are a representation of who they are. You know, it could be current, it could be past, songs that kind of keep lingering in your soul when you go around in the world. You don't have to give us all 10 right away. I mean, right now, but if you could give us maybe half or something like that. Songs that are definitively jazzy.
Lauryn Hill's Sweetest Thing. It's one of my go-to moments all the time. Let's see. There's a Drake song. I can't remember which song it is, but he says like, we're drinking every night because we drink to my accomplishments. That's been the last years of my life, basically. I don't even drink, and now I fucking drink because it's like everybody's like inviting me to a damn pandemic happy hour or like trying to say, great job on the podcast you were on this week. So yeah, we drink it every night now because we drink to my accomplishment. There's that song. Man, let me think. Empire State of Mind. I think about that a lot with my move here, as well as we used that song for mile 16 of the marathon last year for the New York Marathon. We had that as part of our programming, and it was such a moment. This Black woman stopped her whole race to stand in front and watch the band and like record it, and it was just like so motivational for her to be able to feel that in the race, you know, and not hear like some shit that was not going to get her through.
Right.
That song is forever special to me. MGK Till I Die, because I worked on MGK's. I worked on that album release.
Wow.
The first project I did when I was here, when I moved to New York, was that T-shirt design for the album, as well as like his release party for his bands. So that song is special to me. Kendrick, or it might be Black Hippie, The Heart Part 3.
Okay.
Always in the back of my head when he's like, I need a better way to take your fans now. You know, like, when he says like he's Pac reincarnated. A lot of times I feel that way in the sneaker world. Like not a lot of people actively speaking on the issues, you know, particularly Black women. So they try to paint me sometimes like I'm fucking, like I am the Malcolm X of sneakers, but it's like I'm not saying nothing that's not true, and I'm not like trying to start a problem. Let me think. Jock actually has a song I listen to regularly, and I don't even remember what it's called, but look at it. Like about the long journey, and it's so relevant. Like it's so funny to hear it now because he thought he was going to be a rapper when this came out, you know, and like now it's like, oh, Keep Calling by KU, one of my songs. Now let me think. Real Love, Mary J.
Amazing.
I don't know why in my soul I felt like that was one of the songs you were going to say.
It's so good.
He said in my soul, definitely is. Like, I like that strong energy, you know. Dead Prez, I'm an African.
Dead Prez, so underrated as a group.
Yes.
I think they make incredible music.
The red is for the blood in my arm, and the, you know, it's like all of that.
Yeah, that's dope.
Real to me. And I know I could probably think of one more for you. Let me think. Probably No Doubt, Just a Girl.
Good pick.
That was like my 15-year-old angsty self, like,
right.
Hey, you don't want me to drive, you know.
Refer to Gwen's feelings about this whole thing. Nah, that's dope. We really appreciate it. So do you have any final words of encouragement for someone who's seeing you out in the world, living your truth, doing things on your terms? Any advice for people that aspire to do something like that?
It's going to hurt. You will lose work. You will be told no, but the right yes will make all of that worth it. If you stay committed to what you're trying to say and where you're trying to go, you shouldn't feel like you ever have to compromise, because again, like the right yes just hasn't happened yet, and no is just another stop on the way to the right yes. And no, any door closed wasn't a door meant for you to go through. The universe and God, that timing is not yours.
Gotcha.
So, this is key.
That's incredible.
So,
like what my life would have been like if I was here at 28. You know, or like what my life would have been like if I had a traditional route and all of this happened for me when I was at Kicks on Fire, like everybody expected it to, right? Or like I was 30. And how hard the last 10 years probably would have been for me.
Right.
I really am empathetic for young people who pop too early. Staying top of mind, staying relevant, continuing to adapt, continuing to be fluid and willing to learn and change is the only thing that's kept me this whole time. And playing the long game, you know. And I don't know. Maybe if I had a shoe at 28, I would be burnt out by now and like doing something totally outside of this genre of work. Like, who knows?
Right. Yeah, man. I think overall, like, you kind of embody what we want this podcast to be like, have a super inspiring story and being able to speak to challenges and speak to, you know, a particular group that needs that type of energy. And this has been a really refreshing conversation right now. So I appreciate you, you know, doing this with us.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know if you have any last words, Ronald.
I'm blown away. I came in expecting to hear a bunch of accomplishments, and I heard a great amount of inspiration, and I thank you for that. I think some people defer to showing, people how they made it through accomplishment. I think the way that you approach this in this podcast is just, I didn't expect it, and I thought it was pretty incredible. So I thank you, Jazzy. Super cool.
I thank you guys for having me on and for, allowing me to share my story. I think a lot of times people think that that's what people want to hear, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's your collection? And like, what's your most expensive pair of shoes? What's your favorite interview? And how was it when you met Kendrick? Like those types of questions. Like, that's not going to change culture, though. Like,
right.
There's a million podcasts out that's talking about that right now, and that's not going to inspire the next person to really fuck this shit up. So I like to provide tools where I can, and I appreciate you guys for holding space. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sure,
so where can we find your stuff? Where can we see you on social media?
On Twitter, it's Jazerai, R-A-E, like Raekwon. And Instagram, nerd like Jazzy, 2 Z's. And the internet, on the interwebs, you can go to True to Size, like the sneaker term, True to Size, truetosize.com.
Cool.
Dope. So where can we find you, Ronald, as far as following you and what you do?
Oh man. I don't know why I got so excited. Oh, me? No, who is Ron James on everything, Twitter and Instagram. You know what I forgot to mention? My clothing line, Status Apparatus, that thing that I did with Animal Crossing. So if you missed an episode, my clothing line it's doing okay. And I decided to do some recreations of some of the designs on Animal Crossing. And I posted them up on Instagram thinking that, I'm like, see what happens.
Yeah.
Crazy response from Japan, like a bunch of Japan users. So we got a couple thousand downloads from that, just people wanting to wear the stuff in the game. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah, right.
So the clone line's doing okay. My social media is kind of a collection of random things. Like I do Catch the Fade stuff, the music.
Right.
I do stand up, and then I do the clothing line, and I have all this stuff in one place, which feels a little like nuts to have in one space, but that's who I am as a person.
I was gonna say, that's you. That's who you are.
So what about you?
Well, as far as the podcast, it's Branded Podcast, BRNDD podcast. Website's up, so brandedpodcast.com, Branded Podcast on all the social media platforms if you want to look there. Personally, it's Cotton Smooth, COTTEON SMOOTH. Instagram, I try and post up the work I can post when it is able to be posted. I'll throw up a few things up there that I can share that didn't happen, but I can share now. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, man, I think this is it. We've had a beautiful conversation. We've been machine gunning these podcasts, and we're going to put them out more frequently now, which is really dope. And it's something that we want to do, and I'm excited about. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Jazzy. Seriously, thank you.